Hey, it's Kay, and this is Skittles, Botanist. Today, we're going to talk about a game called Citizen Sleeper. This is the Eye, a derelict old space station on the periphery of a corporate-controlled system. Most of its inhabitants are poor. It's a cutthroat environment where survival is a struggle that often leads residents to dangerous, even criminal situations. In a place like this, it's wise not to be too trusting of anyone. It's a familiar setup, right? But where Citizen Sleeper really sets itself apart from many of its dystopian sci-fi counterparts is in the player character. You play as a sleeper, an emulated copy of a human's consciousness, in a synthetic body. So immediately, this raises the question, why are sleepers created? I used to have this job where I worked regular hours, answered to a manager, and had all the control over my labor and my time that any other worker typically has, basically zero. However, I was not legally an employee. I was a contractor. The company I worked for was using a loophole that is very commonly exploited to classify their staff as independent contractors, as self-employed. While their contract requires them to meet all the responsibilities expected of a full-time employee. Why would they do that? Because employees have certain rights. A minimum wage, required break and lunch times, and in my country, a certain number of paid sick days and holiday time. All things that slightly reduce the amount of profit your boss is making off of your employment. As a self-employed contractor, I had none of those things, despite working a regular 9-to-5. This is euphemistically called casualization. And in the dystopian sci-fi setting of Citizen Sleeper, it is taken to its logical extreme. If creating a new category of worker allows us to circumvent workers' rights, then by creating a new category of person, we can circumvent human rights. The sleeper is effectively a slave. You are literal corporate property. The human whose mind yours is based on does have certain rights. Which is why they had to consent to being put into cryogenic sleep and a copy of their mind being used in this new body that is not legally human, does not legally have any protections. Exactly what economic desperation led your original mind's owner to do something like that, you never really find out. That's for you to imagine, based on the world you experience in the game, as you don't have many memories of your original life. You are detached from society, from history, simply a mind and a body that can be used for labor. Although you have a robot body, you still need to eat to survive, and you have to do it regularly, or else your body will deteriorate even faster. And yes, I said even faster, because your condition bar naturally goes down by 1 point per cycle, even if you're well fed. The only reliable way to restore your condition is with stabilizer, a medicine manufactured and controlled by the corporation that owns you. Not unlike the way American health insurance is often tied to your employment with a company. The corporation keeps you on a short leash by designing you to require a medicine for survival that you cannot easily obtain without them. You do manage to find an expensive source of stabilizer on the Eye that not only requires you to work harder to afford stabilizer on top of food, it involves you in a criminal underworld. Because the only way to access this medicine without returning to your corporate owners is through the black market. Methods of economic control lead the poor to crime. But the alternative is death, so you do it. In fact, you find the gang you associate with to get your hands on stabilizer, Yadigan, is the closest thing to a government in the section of the Eye called the Low End. A similarly dubious quote-unquote union controls the other side, where extremely dangerous and underregulated industrial labor is the main work to be found. Both the union and the gang seem heavily influenced behind the scenes by SNARP, the massive, system-wide corporation that owns you. At one point, the corporation sends a bounty hunter to collect you, and there's really no institution you can turn to, there's no formal law or government, and even if there was, you're not a person. The bounty hunter is doing nothing illegal by retrieving lost property. More than just an exploration of the struggle to survive in a precarious economic and legal situation, Citizen Sleeper touches on an aspect of precarity that is not discussed as often. It can cause mental and physical disability, as well as massively exacerbate pre-existing disabilities. At the start of every cycle, you roll a set of 6-sided dice. These dice will determine your chances of succeeding at every task you will have to perform throughout that cycle. Whether you roll a bunch of 6s or a bunch of 1s, you still need the same amount of food, the same amount of stabilizer. The various other threats to your existence as an illegal person do not slow down one bit just because you get bad rolls. To make matters worse, as your body's condition deteriorates, you get less dice per cycle. Therefore, the harder you have to work and the less care you receive, the less you will be able to do. This can create a compounding cycle of problems that can physically, mentally, and financially ruin you. Anybody who has had to work while disabled will have felt a bitter pang of familiarity upon starting a cycle with barely any money, and a handful of 1s and 2s, but knowing that you have to work that shift, you have to get food to survive, you have to run this errand, you have to deal with this unexpected problem that just popped up, and you just can't do all of it. Something has to give. You're all 1s and 2s. But if you can survive those early crisis points, if you can put together a fragile but real support network by trading favors with other regular people, if you can get just a little money in the bank to ensure that 1 or 2 bad cycles won't mean your life is in danger, you can start to be proactive. You can start to investigate what's happening on the eye and potentially find a way to escape. At least that's the plan. There are 3 different endings to Citizen Sleeper, 3 ways off the eye, 3 possible new lives you can live. Each ending offers you a binary choice, a way to leave the eye and all the struggles that come with it, or the choice to stay. Except for one ending where you have the third option to fuck over Lem and Mina and leave the eye on your own, but if you pick that, you're a monster. You can come across these endings in any order, but there's one you're most likely to encounter much later in the game, so let's talk about the other 2 first. Let me tell you about the first time I turned down a way off the eye. I met a spaceship mechanic named Bliss, who appeared to be on the brink of financial ruin. Her business partner had run off on her with all their money. Clearly desperate to save her business, she asks me, a total stranger, to be her new business partner. The only catch is, she's gonna need a pretty large sum of money up front. So I did something that's probably pretty dangerous on the eye. I trust her. It takes a couple jobs for that investment to really pay off, and jobs for Bliss take a lot of dice and a lot of time. Time I don't have as the clock on my synthetic body is ticking down. As you might imagine, some things go wrong, but eventually we get a gig that pays, and it pays well. I'm rewarded for putting my trust in another person. More jobs are coming in too, including one to repair the ship of a mercenary I did some work for earlier in the game. That partnership ended on less than ideal terms. She's not exactly thrilled to see me, but she's willing to take me and Bliss off the eye, to some new world out there, to a fresh start. Getting out of this place had been my goal up until now, but I found myself kind of surprised because I didn't want to go. As hard as it was to get the medicine I need to literally keep my body running, Who knows if it would be even harder to get it on whatever planet these two are shipping off to. People in precarious economic situations become more risk-averse, not less. Giving up what little security I've managed to cobble together just seems like a crazy thing to do, so I stay. The precarity of my situation led me to actively turn down a way out when it was offered to me. The cycles pass. I keep working, trying to stay fed and dodge corporate bounty hunters who've been paid to retrieve the company's property, my body, all while chasing my own leads and trying to uncover more mysteries on the eye. Mostly what I uncover are stories of people being screwed over by our corporate overlords. I meet Lem, a low-level dock worker, and his adopted daughter, Mina, earlier in the game. Over time, I befriended them. Lem actually trusted me to babysit for him. Me, a legal non-person, a literal subhuman entity. Just like I put my trust in Bliss, someone else put their trust in me. Despite the oppressive and often ruthlessly capitalist nature of the Eye and the society it's a part of, Citizen Sleeper refuses to allow itself to be entirely cynical about people. Even in a world that teaches us that the people we meet are only worth as much as we can profit off of them, people still form real, meaningful connections. Lem and many other workers were scammed into constructing a colony ship that was headed for a new, uninhabited world. They were told they'd be added to a draw, and some of them would be rewarded with a place on the ship and a way off the Eye. They were never going to be included in the draw. That was for their economic betters. How many of us have been duped into working harder or longer than we needed to because the promise of some kind of advancement was dangled in front of us, but never seemed to materialize? However, I managed to get Lem and Mina on the ship, and I'm presented with a choice. Do I follow them on or let them go without me? This decision was harder than with Bliss and the mercenary because I spent a lot of time really getting to know these guys. These weren't just work associates. This guy trusted me with his child. Mina is really standoffish with strangers, and she eventually opens up to you. These people became like family to me. But this colony is going to be run by a shady group of space libertarians who claim that they'll be independent from corporate control on this new frontier world. The comparisons to America aren't subtle here, and we all know how that worked out. How would this hyper-libertarian colony feel about me? I'm literally rogue corporate property. My very existence in this place is an affront to property rights, an affront to the market. And at this point, the only thing I know about these people is they lied to a whole station of workers to get them to work on their ship, under the false hope that they'd have a chance to leave. And again, how would I get stabilizer? My own precarity discouraged me again from taking this leap. This time, not just medical and economic, but legal precarity. By this point in the game, I'd made some friends. I traded stories with the quiet but comforting cook, Emphas. I'd gone into business with a no-nonsense barkeeper who stood up for me when some jerk at the bar decided he didn't like my kind being around here. Every day in this place may be spinning plates, but I was getting pretty good at spinning them. I had gotten better at balancing my situation, which won me even more stability that I clung to so desperately I would willingly give up a chance at having a family just to hang on to that stability. So I let them go. Progressing further along the Eye requires buying permits to get through toll sites. It's costly and not something you're likely to be able to afford between food and medicine until later in the game. But on the other side of the Eye, past 2 toll booths, you might notice that things look strangely green. The Greenway is basically farmland. Food production takes place here in a self-contained ecosystem. Further in is the Haifa commune. Finding this place dramatically changes the dynamic of the game. Before, you were constantly struggling to afford food and stabilizer, in a permanent state of precarity, and even subject to engaging with organized crime just to get the medicine you need to survive. But in the Haifa commune, you can spend 1 dai to work a shift. And in return, you get not money, but a cycle's worth of food. There's no negative outcome to this check. It doesn't matter if you rolled a 1 or a 6 that day. From each according to their ability, to each according to their need. You contribute as best you can, and you eat. Suddenly that sinking feeling when you start each day and roll a bunch of 1s and 2s, when you're too burned out, too disabled, too stretched from all the things you need to put your higher dice into, it disappears. No matter what, you eat. It's so jarringly different from the rest of the eye. Even in places where you've made friends, real relationships with other people, you still have to pay up to get what you need, because they have to pay to eat too. Your relationships are dominated by the logic of capital. It's so unconditional and downright warm at the commune that I kept expecting there to be some twist. In most other stories, there'd be a twist. Such an equitable society usually can't be allowed to pass without some dark side to counterbalance it. I was reminded of the commune and the cannery town in the Outer Worlds, where the peaceful, semi-anarchist lifestyle of this commune couldn't be left unassailed. So their leader was written to be motivated by personal grudges, and their fertilizer was human remains. They had to have a dark side. A good thing just can't be good. Good things, of course, are impossible. But in Citizen Sleeper, the twist never comes. In fact, the more you do for the commune, the closer you get to a botanist named Rico. She helps you to grow mushrooms that can be refined to make your stabilizer. These little fucking vials that have been tormenting you all game. The often extremely costly medicine without which you will die. You can grow it. In the dirt. For free. Even on a space station far from the Earth we know, nature itself provides you with what you need to survive. The mechanics of a market that wedges itself between you and the natural world to extract value from your needs suddenly feels so obviously predatory, so outrageous. Here's where Citizen Sleeper does something I think is really interesting. In a game so intent on interrogating the supposed dichotomy between an artificial and natural being, the Greenway, the lush green paradise that seems to almost magically grow precisely what you need to survive, is maintained by an AI. Not only blurring the lines between the synthetic and the natural, but asserting that man-made structures can be used to actually meet people's needs, not just extract value from them. The AI is not hostile or nefarious in any way, it is simply gardening. Being a digital consciousness yourself, the gardener offers you a third way to escape the eye, and the ever-deteriorating body you've been struggling to keep alive for the entire game. The gardener offers to keep your consciousness in the Greenway network. With it, and countless others, it's described as a chorus, a collection of consciousnesses, growing free, untethered from the physical. It sounds beautiful. It's about as close to the idea of heaven as you can get without the clouds and a little guy playing a harp. This was really hard to say no to. At this point, none of the reasons I had to reject the other endings were really relevant anymore. I wouldn't need Stabilizer at all as an uploaded consciousness free of my body. I would probably long outlive everyone on the eye. There was no uncertainty about some unseen other world I'd be going to. There was no fear of the corporation getting a hold of me. This ending offered me freedom from every antagonistic problem the game had put in front of me. It offered me peace. Rico is sitting with my physical body while I meet the gardener and make this decision. She quietly begs me not to leave. And I realize that earlier in the game, I would have taken this ending in a heartbeat, but that I no longer wanted to leave the eye at all. Not only had I made real human connections in this place, but I'd found this incredible home where I'm accepted, where I have a community, and where my needs are met unconditionally. I never have to turn to crime again. I never have to break my back building ships for someone else to get rich off again. I never have to wonder where my next meal is coming from or how I'll get the medicine I need to survive. I did not need this escape because I had already overcome precarity with community. In what at first seems like such a bleak, pessimistic setting, Citizen Sleeper does something genuinely bold. It posits that even here, in this brutalizing, exploitative hellscape of a space station, on the far reaches of a deeply capitalist and controlled civilization, there is a seed of a better world just waiting to bloom. If we can do it here, we can do it anywhere. And so I found a place to call home. A little patch of green amongst the steel at the edge of the galaxy. Your money's no good here, and everyone eats.